Your mind is a crowded room of notifications, obligations, and endless worry. This constant noise is not your permanent reality, but a signal that something vital is missing, an invisible structure for your thoughts. The ancient Stoics promised not just peace, but mastery by building this inner framework. Marcus Aurelius wrote that the soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts, and tranquility is a paradise you construct within. This video is your practical guide to that construction project, revealing the core principles that transform inner chaos into unshakable clarity. What do you believe is the true source of your deepest mental calm? The first and most critical piece of the invisible structure is understanding what is and isn't yours to control. This is the bedrock, the cornerstone upon which all of Stoic mental clarity is built. It carves a clear line between the external world of chaos and your internal world of sovereignty. The Stoic teacher Epictetus opened his entire manual for life, the Enchiridion, with this very idea. He wrote that some things are up to us and some things are not up to us. Our opinions, our impulses, our desires, our aversions, in a word, whatever is our own doing, he classified as being up to us. Everything else, our property, our reputation, our command, in a word, whatever is not our own doing, is not up to us. This distinction is not just philosophical trivia, it is the first and most liberating step toward mental peace. It is the act of consciously redirecting your finite energy away from futile struggles against immovable objects and toward the one arena where your power is absolute, your own mind. Think of the frustration of being stuck in a traffic jam. You cannot control the red taillights stretching for miles. You cannot control the construction ahead. You cannot control the person who caused the accident. All of that resides firmly in the category of what is not up to you. Wasting your energy on anger, on honking, on mentally rewriting the morning's events is a drain with zero return. The dichotomy of control asks you to identify what is yours in that moment. Your reaction is yours, your breath is yours, the decision to listen to an audiobook or sit in thoughtful silence is yours. By shifting your focus from the uncontrollable traffic to the controllable response, you reclaim your mental space from chaos. So, what is one situation currently causing you stress that is entirely outside your control? That frustration you feel in traffic, that is not the traffic itself. It is your judgment of the traffic. This leads us to the second piece of the invisible structure, the discipline of perception. What if the chaos is not in the event, but in your judgment of it? The Stoics argued that it is not things that disturb us, but our interpretations of things. A flat tire is just a flat tire, a neutral event in the world. The stress, the anger, the panic, that is the story you layer on top of it. The discipline of perception is the conscious practice of choosing your interpretations. It is the mental filter that strains out the emotional noise and allows you to see the raw material of reality more clearly. Marcus Aurelius constantly reminded himself of this in his private writings. He said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength." He was not denying the difficulty of events, but emphasizing that our thoughts color our entire reality. Think of receiving critical feedback at work. The initial automatic judgment might be one of personal attack. You might think, "My boss does not respect me," or "I am terrible at my job." This interpretation creates a storm of internal chaos, defensiveness, and anxiety. Now apply the Stoic filter, reframe the event, see the feedback not as a verdict on your worth, but as a data packet. It is pure information about a specific project or behavior, an opportunity to identify a blind spot and grow more skilled. The event itself has not changed, but your perception of it has transformed it from a threat into a tool. This is how you build mental clarity, by installing these filters that catch destructive judgments before they can poison your inner world. Can you identify a recent negative judgment you made, one that you could now reframe into a more constructive and peaceful perspective? The Stoics did not merely advise accepting fate, they commanded loving it. This is the ultimate principle, Amor Fati, a Latin phrase meaning a love of one's fate. It is the practice of embracing everything that happens to you, every setback, every triumph, every mundane moment, not as a burden to be endured but as a necessary and beneficial part of your journey. While the phrase was later championed by the philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche, the sentiment beats at the very heart of Stoicism. The Roman statesman Seneca wrote that we should welcome hardship, for the very circumstances we curse and struggle against are the raw materials that form our character. This radical acceptance is the final, master-level move for dissolving internal chaos, because it targets the root of all mental noise, our resistance to what is. Think of that failed project, the one that fell apart despite your best efforts. The default reaction is to see it as a disaster, a stain on your record, a source of shame and frustration. You fight against the reality of its failure, replaying the events and wishing for a different outcome. This resistance is a storm inside your mind. Now apply Amor Fati. You look at that same failure and you choose to love it. You see it not as a catastrophe, but as the exact lesson you needed. It taught you about a flawed assumption in your plan. It revealed a weakness in your team's communication. It forged a new level of resilience within you that you could not have gained any other way. The event itself remains unchanged, but your relationship to it is transformed from one of conflict to one of alliance. The chaos of regret and resistance evaporates, replaced by the quiet clarity of purpose and growth. So, what is one past event you have struggled to accept that upon closer inspection secretly served your development in a way you never initially saw? Your biggest worry, that all-consuming problem, shrinks to an invisible speck when seen from the edge of the atmosphere. This is the fourth principle, the view from above, a powerful Stoic meditation designed to shatter the illusion that your struggles are the center of the universe. It is the ultimate tool for gaining cosmic perspective. Marcus Aurelius was a master of this practice. In his meditations, he constantly reminded himself to look at things from this higher vantage. He wrote, "Keep before your eyes the swiftness of the dreadful passing away of the human race. All that you see will soon perish, and those who witness that perishing will themselves perish in turn." He would contemplate the vastness of time, picturing the endless procession of people who lived, loved, worried, and died, their dramas now completely forgotten. He was not being morbid, he was being realistic. He was recalibrating his sense of scale. Your anxiety about a work presentation, your frustration in an argument, your fear of a social slight, these feel like monumental events when you are standing in the middle of them. But from 10,000 feet or from 1,000 years in the future, they lose their terrifying power and are revealed for what they often are, small, temporary blips in an immense and ongoing story. The purpose is not to make your life seem meaningless, but to free you from the tyranny of small-mindedness. It connects you to something larger, the grand flow of human existence, and in doing so, it drains the panic and urgency from your present moment. Try this the next time a wave of anxiety hits. Close your eyes for just a few seconds and mentally pull the camera back. See yourself in your room, then see your building, then your city, then the continent, until you're looking at the whole blue and white marble of Earth hanging in the void. From there, your problem does not vanish, but its true proportion becomes clear. It is a single note in a vast symphony, so hold that thought for a moment. How would your biggest current worry look from the perspective of your whole life or from a cosmic view? Paradoxically, the Stoics believed that to strip fear of its power, you must invite it in for a detailed conversation. This is the fifth principle, Premeditatio Malorum, the premeditation of evils. It is the deliberate, vivid practice of imagining the worst that could happen, not to dwell in despair, but to systematically disarm the unknown. The Roman philosopher Seneca was a powerful advocate of this mental exercise. He wrote that we should anticipate not just the possibilities of fortune, but its extremes. He advised that we should send our thoughts ahead to face all our problems in advance, long before they ever occur. By doing this, you are no longer a passive victim of circumstance, but an active participant in your own preparedness. You are rehearsing for adversity, so when life delivers its inevitable challenges, you meet them not with shock and terror, but with a calm, practiced response. This is the crucial distinction. Premeditatio Malorum is not pessimistic worrying. Worry is a chaotic, fearful cycle that imagines the worst and then stops there, leaving you feeling helpless. This Stoic practice is a structured, logical exercise that imagines the worst and then moves to the next vital step, planning your response. Imagine you have a difficult conversation looming, perhaps asking for a raise or confronting a friend about a hurtful action. The default mode is to anxiously run through all the things that could go wrong, letting the fear of a negative outcome paralyze you. The Stoic approach is different. You sit down and you consciously walk through the worst-case scenario. What if they say no? What if the conversation becomes tense? What if the friendship is strained? You visualize it in detail, and then you ask yourself the most important question, and then what? You would survive, you would handle it, you would explore other options, or you would give the friendship space and time. By facing the feared outcome directly, you rob it of its emotional charge. The monster in the shadows loses its form when you shine a light on it. The anxiety diminishes because you have already lived through the event in your mind and confirmed your own resilience. You arrive at the actual conversation not gripped by fear, but grounded in a quiet confidence, prepared for any outcome. So, what is one future event you fear, and how can mentally preparing for its potential difficulties fundamentally change your approach? The Stoics believed each of us possesses an unassailable inner fortress. They called this the Inner Citadel, the core of your being, built not of stone but of your reason and your virtue. This is the final destination on the path from chaos to mastery, the quiet, central room within you that no external event can ever truly reach or destroy. Your reputation can be attacked, your property can be lost, your body can fall ill, but this inner self remains sovereign, a sanctuary of peace that you alone hold the key to. Marcus Aurelius described this profound truth when he wrote, "You are a little soul carrying a corpse." He was pointing to the fundamental separation between your inner self, the commander, and the temporary vessel it inhabits. Your true strength does not come from protecting the vessel from every scratch and dent, but from fortifying the commander within. Mastery, then, is the daily work of reinforcing this citadel's walls so that the chaos of the outside world, the criticism and the praise, the gains and the losses, all break against them like waves against a cliff. Consider the sting of public criticism, perhaps a harsh online comment or a public rebuke. When your inner citadel is weak, built on the shifting sand of others' opinions, a single critical word can feel like a siege weapon crashing through your gates. Your entire sense of self-worth crumbles with the impact, but when your citadel is strong, its walls built from the bedrock of your own reasoned principles and moral character, you can hear the same criticism from that place of safety. You can assess it calmly from the ramparts. Is there useful data here? Is it true? If it is, you can integrate it without personal catastrophe. If it is not, you can let it pass by without letting it define you. Your value is no longer held hostage by external voices. This inner fortress is your ultimate source of mental clarity, because it provides a permanent, stable vantage point from which to observe the storms of life without being swept away by them. So ask yourself this: what are the walls of your own inner citadel made of, and where might they need reinforcement right now? The most powerful tool for clarity is the constant awareness of your own mortality. This is the seventh principle, Memento Mori, the Latin for remember you must die. At first glance, this seems like a dark and frightening thought, a practice to be avoided. But for the Stoics, it was the exact opposite. It was a profound and liberating technique to jolt yourself into a life of purpose and presence. It is the ultimate filter for your attention, sifting out the meaningless noise and leaving only what is truly essential. Seneca captured this perfectly when he wrote that we are not given a short life, but we make it short, and we are not ill-supplied but wasteful of it. He lamented how we squander our days on petty anxieties and postpone our true living for a future that is never guaranteed. Memento Mori is the antidote to that postponement. It is the voice that whispers in your ear, this could be the last time. This is not a morbid fixation on death, but a vibrant celebration of life, made more intense and beautiful by its inevitable finiteness. Imagine you are in the middle of a petty argument, a heated debate over something that, in the grand scheme, means absolutely nothing. The mental clutter of anger and self-righteousness fills your mind. Now apply the Memento Mori filter. Ask yourself, if I knew this day was my last, would I choose to spend my final hours embroiled in this conflict? The answer is almost always a clear and instant no. The argument immediately loses its power, its urgency evaporates. Your perspective shifts from winning a trivial point to preserving your precious peace. The clutter clears, and what remains is the simple, profound choice to let it go and reconnect with what actually matters. This practice works just as powerfully for positive moments. When you are with a loved one, fully reminding yourself that this moment is fleeting and will never come again, you put down your phone, you listen more intently. You see them more clearly. You extract the full value from the experience, unburdened by distractions. Your limited time becomes the reason you live more deeply, not the reason you live in fear. So, if you knew you had limited time, what trivial concerns would you immediately discard from your mind? We chase mastery thinking it lies in getting more, but the Stoics found it in wanting less. This is the art of contentment, a state the Greeks called euthymia, a peaceful flow of life where the soul is settled and satisfied. It is not a passive resignation, but an active appreciation for the present moment and the abundance you already possess. The constant hunger for the next achievement, the next possession, the next compliment, this is the engine of inner chaos. Contentment is the decision to turn that engine off. The Stoic teacher Epictetus placed desire and aversion at the very root of human suffering. He taught that we are disrupted not by events, but by our opinions about them, and chief among those opinions is the belief that we need something we do not currently have to be happy. When you believe happiness is a future condition, you sentence your present moment to a state of lack. Consider a simple meal. You sit down to eat, but your mind is elsewhere. You are thinking the food is too plain, wishing it were a more extravagant dish from a restaurant, or you are already planning your next snack. This mental noise, this desire for the meal to be different, robs you of the experience itself. Contentment is the practice of pulling your attention back. It is noticing the warmth of the bowl, the aroma, the simple nourishment it provides your body. You are not settling for less, you are fully receiving what is already there. The meal itself has not changed, but your relationship to it has transformed from one of judgment to one of gratitude. This is the invisible structure of contentment at work, a framework that finds richness not in accumulation, but in depth of experience. Take a quiet inventory of 3 things you have right now that you can genuinely be content with. True resilience is not born in comfort, but forged in the small, deliberate challenges we choose for ourselves. The Stoics intentionally sought out minor discomfort to immunize themselves against future hardship. This is the principle of voluntary discomfort, a powerful training regimen for the mind. It is the practice of occasionally saying no to an easy convenience, not out of self-punishment, but to prove to your own deepest fears that you are capable of enduring much more than you believe. It is about building a reference library of experiences where you faced a small challenge and emerged unscathed, thereby draining the larger, unknown fears of their power. Seneca, one of the wealthiest men in Rome, would regularly practice poverty. He would wear shabby clothes, sleep on a hard bed, and eat only the most basic food for days at a time. He did this not because he had to, but because he wanted to. He wrote that we must learn to want what we have, and to want little, for by practicing poverty we prove that poverty holds no terror for us. He was building a psychological immune system. A modern example might be choosing to take a cold shower for the final minute of your morning routine. That initial shock is a small, controlled dose of adversity. Your mind will scream in protest, listing all the reasons you should turn the knob back to warm. But when you stay, when you breathe through the discomfort and discover that you are still standing, you accomplish something profound. You have just collected concrete evidence that you can handle a difficult sensation. This evidence then translates into other areas of your life. The next time a stressful work deadline looms, a part of you remembers that you can endure the cold, and that this professional pressure, too, is something you can breathe through and withstand. You are not just building tolerance for cold water, you are building the very muscle of resilience itself. So, what small, voluntary discomfort can you introduce into your week to strengthen your resilience? That immediate, hot surge of anger after reading an angry email is not a command, it is an invitation. The Stoic master understands the profound power found in the space between that initial impression and your final action. This is the 10th principle, the suspension of judgment, the deliberate pause before your reaction takes form. It is in this small, quiet space that the raw energy of chaos is transformed into the clarity of conscious choice. Epictetus gave us the precise instruction for this. He taught his students to be slow to assent to their impressions. He said that when any disturbing thought arises, do not let it carry you away. Instead, say to it, wait, let me see who you are and what you are about. This is not about suppressing emotion, but about interrogating it. You are inserting a moment of reason between the spark and the explosion. Think of that email, the one that feels like a personal attack. Your first impression, the automatic judgment, screams that you have been disrespected, that you must fire back a defensive or equally angry reply to set the record straight. This is the point of maximum danger where internal chaos dictates your external behavior. The practice of suspension is to close the email, to walk away for an hour, or even just for 5 deep breaths. In that pause, the initial heat begins to cool. Your rational mind, which was momentarily hijacked, comes back online. You can now ask the Stoic questions. Is this email truly a verdict on my character? Or is it the frustrated outburst of a stressed person? Is my desired reaction aligned with my deeper principles, or is it just a reflexive spasm of ego? By waiting, you move from being a puppet of your impressions to the author of your response. That one simple pause can prevent a professional rift, save a friendship, and preserve your own inner peace. Recall a recent time an immediate reaction caused problems. How would a deliberate, conscious pause have changed the entire outcome of that situation? Your personal anxieties can feel like a universe unto themselves, a dense fog obscuring everything else. But Stoicism offers a powerful tool to clear that fog by pulling your focus outward to the vast web of human connection you are part of. This is the principle of Sympatheia, the profound Stoic belief in the interconnectedness of all rational beings. It is the understanding that you are not an isolated island of worry, but a single thread woven into the larger fabric of humanity. Marcus Aurelius constantly returned to this idea to ground himself, writing that what brings no benefit to the hive brings none to the bee. He saw himself not just as a Roman emperor, but as a citizen of the world. When you internalize this, the small, ego-driven dramas that generate so much internal noise begin to lose their power. Your frustration with a coworker who seems deliberately obstructive, for instance, can consume your mental energy for days. The story you tell yourself is one of personal conflict, of disrespect aimed directly at you. Sympatheia asks you to reframe that story entirely. Instead of seeing an adversary, you practice seeing a fellow human being, someone who is likely acting from their own place of pain, ignorance, or fear, just as you sometimes do. You make a conscious effort to understand their perspective, not to excuse poor behavior, but to recognize the shared humanity beneath it. This shift does not magically solve the problem, but it dissolves the resentment and anger that were poisoning your own mind. The conflict is no longer a personal attack on your fortress, but a shared problem to be navigated with reason and compassion. How would viewing your most frustrating personal conflict through this lens of shared humanity change the very texture of your feelings about it? The invisible structure you are building is not a human invention. It is a framework erected on the immutable laws of nature and reason. The Stoics called the ultimate goal of life living in accordance with nature. This was not a call to abandon civilization and live in the woods. It was an invitation to use your unique human gift, your rational mind, to understand the rational order of the universe and then to align your own choices with that order. The founder of Stoicism, Zeno, defined this beautifully. He said that the goal of life is to live in agreement with nature, meaning to live according to our own human nature as rational beings and according to the nature of the whole universe. When you do this, you stop fighting the current of reality. You move with it, and in that movement you find a profound and lasting harmony. Think of your own career path. Imagine two possible versions of yourself. In one, you have forced yourself into a high-paying, prestigious role because it was expected of you. The work feels alien, draining your energy and creating a constant hum of anxiety. This is a life lived in opposition to your nature. You are using your reason to fight against your own innate talents and inclinations, and the internal friction is immense. Now imagine a different path, one where your work, while still challenging, feels like a natural extension of your skills and interests. You are using your reason to solve problems that genuinely engage you. The work itself is fulfilling because it aligns with who you are at your core. This is living in accordance with your nature. The external pressures and setbacks may still exist, but internally there is no war. There is only the focused application of your energy. The chaos of feeling like a fraud or a square peg in a round hole simply vanishes, replaced by the clarity of purposeful action. So take a moment for honest reflection. In what area of your life are you currently acting against your own nature or reason? And what is the quiet, persistent conflict that this misalignment is creating within you? You can pour your entire soul into a project while still holding its outcome with an open hand. This is the 13th principle, the reserve clause, the art of detached engagement. The Stoics did not withdraw from the world, they engaged with it completely, but always with a silent caveat whispered to the universe, fate permitting. It is the practice of combining your maximum effort with a serene acceptance of any result. You do your part with total focus and intention, yet you release your tight, anxious grip on the specific outcome you had envisioned. Seneca captured this delicate balance perfectly. He wrote that the wise man loves both his work and his destiny, knowing that his plans are but a single thread in a much larger tapestry. He commits to the action, not the award. This is the ultimate defense against the chaos of disappointment and frustration that arises when reality fails to match your rigid expectations. Consider the process of preparing for a crucial job interview. You do everything within your power. You research the company, you rehearse your answers, you select your attire with care. You invest your energy fully in the preparation, the one thing you truly control. The reserve clause is the mental footnote you add to all this effort. It is the quiet understanding that you are doing your part, while the final decision rests with factors beyond your command, the other candidates, the hiring manager's mood, the company's shifting budget. When you internalize this, you walk into the interview room not with the desperate energy of someone who needs this specific job to validate their existence, but with the calm confidence of someone who has done their best and is ready to accept whatever the world offers. If you get the offer, you celebrate. If you do not, you are not shattered because your sense of self was never pinned to that single result. Your peace was reserved, held safely in the knowledge that you controlled your effort, and that is always enough. Where in your own life can you introduce this reserve clause, learning to invest your full effort without chaining your emotional well-being to a specific, uncontrollable result? That final question you asked yourself about misalignment reveals a need for a daily tool. The invisible structure of a Stoic mind is not built once and forgotten. It requires daily maintenance, a quiet ritual of inspection and repair. The ancient Stoics perfected this through a practice known as the evening review, a structured time for honest reflection on the day just lived. Seneca, in his essay on anger, gives us a personal glimpse into his own routine. He wrote that he would examine his entire day, going back over what he had done and said, hiding nothing from himself, passing nothing by. He would ask his own spirit, what bad habit of yours did you cure today? What fault did you resist? In what aspect are you better? This was not an exercise in self-criticism, but in self-awareness and relentless improvement. He was checking the integrity of his inner citadel, looking for cracks where chaos had seeped in. The process itself is beautifully simple and takes only a few minutes. You find a quiet moment at the end of your day and you ask yourself 3 direct questions. First, what did I do well today? Where did I act with virtue, with reason, with courage or justice? Acknowledge your successes, no matter how small. Second, where did I let externals disturb my peace? Did a critical comment hijack my mood? Did a traffic jam steal my patience? Did a desire for something more rob me of my contentment? Identify the exact point where your judgment faltered. And third, armed with that knowledge, what can I do to improve tomorrow? This is not about planning your schedule, but about preparing your mind. Perhaps your goal is to pause for 3 breaths before responding to a provoking email, or to consciously reframe a single obstacle as an opportunity. This nightly audit transforms random experiences into deliberate training. It turns the chaos of the day into the raw material for your mastery. What would a 5-minute, completely honest review of your own day reveal to you tonight? Mastery is not waiting for you in some distant future or hidden in a corrected past. It is built brick by solid brick in the present moment, the only time you are ever truly alive and the only arena where your control is absolute. The past is a ghost, the future a mirage, but the now is the solid ground beneath your feet. This relentless focus on the immediate present is a cornerstone of the Stoic structure, a direct counter to the twin thieves of mental peace, anxiety, and regret. Marcus Aurelius constantly drilled this into his own mind. He wrote, "Remember that it is not the future or the past that weighs upon you, but always the present." The load of the future is hypothetical, the burden of the past is unchangeable, but the present moment is a weight you are actually built to carry. When you abandon the now to fret about a future presentation or to agonize over a past mistake, you are abandoning the only territory you can ever actually govern. Your power, your virtue, your ability to act with reason and integrity, all of it exists exclusively in this single, fleeting point in time. Think about the last time you were in a meaningful conversation. Were you truly there, or was your mind already racing ahead, composing your next brilliant point while the other person was still speaking? That mental leap into the future creates a subtle chaos, a division within you that prevents genuine connection and understanding. The Stoic practice is to pull your entire consciousness back into the present. It is to listen with your whole being, to see the person in front of you not as an obstacle to your next statement, but as the entire focus of your current duty. The task is not to win the conversation, but to be fully present within it. This is how you reclaim your mental space from the phantom worries of tomorrow and the silent echoes of yesterday. You perform the surgery of the present moment with total attention. You write the email with complete focus. You drink your tea with full awareness. Every act becomes a meditation in mastery when you refuse to let your mind be anywhere else. So, right now, in this very moment, what is within your power to do or think well? For the Stoics, the entire invisible structure was built for one purpose: to live a virtuous life. This was the ultimate aim, the final destination of all their mental training. They proposed a radical idea that virtue is the only true good and vice the only true evil. Everything else we chase after, our wealth, our reputation, our physical comfort, all of it was classified as indifferent. It was not good or bad in itself, but only in how it was used by a virtuous or a vicious character. The great teacher Epictetus put it in the clearest possible terms. He said, "What is the true good? A good will. What is the true evil? A bad will. Everything else is merely the material for the will to act upon, either well or poorly." This single redefinition of success turns your entire life upside down in the most liberating way. Your focus shifts completely from the uncontrollable outcomes of the world to the entirely controllable quality of your own character. The goal is no longer to be rich or famous, but to be wise, courageous, just, and temperate, no matter your circumstances. These are the four cardinal virtues, the pillars of the Stoic good life. Wisdom is your ability to navigate complex situations with sound judgment, to see reality clearly and make the right decisions. Courage is not the absence of fear, but the strength to act rightly in the face of fear, adversity, or discomfort. Justice is your duty to your fellow human beings, to act with fairness, kindness, and in the service of the common good. And temperance is the mastery of your desires and impulses, the self-control that brings harmony and prevents you from being enslaved by your own appetites. Imagine you are faced with a difficult choice at work. You discover a colleague has taken credit for your idea. The easiest path, the one that avoids conflict, is to say nothing. But you feel a knot of resentment tightening in your chest. Applying the virtue framework, you stop asking which action is easiest. You ask a different set of questions. What would a courageous response look like? One that addresses the injustice without malice. What would a just resolution be? One that is fair to both you and your colleague. The answer may be a calm, private conversation to clarify the facts, an action driven by courage and justice rather than by passive anger or aggressive retaliation. The external outcome, whether you get the credit or not, becomes secondary. The primary victory is that you acted with integrity. Your inner clarity comes from knowing you chose the virtuous path, regardless of the prize. Looking back at your own recent actions, which of these four cardinal virtues did you express most clearly, and which one might be calling for more deliberate cultivation in your life right now? That virtuous path is paved with things that are not good or evil in themselves. The Stoics drew a crucial line between your character and everything else in the world, labeling these externals as indifferents. This does not mean you are meant to be cold or uncaring. It means you recognize that health, wealth, and reputation are ultimately indifferent to your moral worth. They are neither virtues nor vices. The real Stoic mastery comes in how you handle them, by treating them as preferred or dispreferred indifference. A preferred indifferent is something you naturally lean toward, like physical health over sickness or financial security over poverty. A dispreferred indifferent is what you would naturally avoid. The goal is to pursue your preferred indifference with energy and skill, while holding the outcome with a relaxed, open hand. The ancient sources are clear on this distinction. Diogenes Laertius, recording the teachings of the early Stoics, wrote that they placed virtue alone in the class of goods, while placing health, wealth, and beauty in the class of indifference, though they allowed that some of these were preferred. This is the ultimate safeguard against emotional chaos. You can wholeheartedly desire a promotion at work. You can prepare for it, work tirelessly for it, and see it as a preferred outcome. This is the rational part of the process. The chaos erupts only when you fuse your inner peace to that specific result, when you decide that your happiness is impossible without that new title and salary. When the promotion is given to someone else, that fusion is what causes the devastation. You are not mourning the lost opportunity alone. You are mourning the collapse of a story you told yourself about what you need to be happy. The Stoic, having pursued the promotion as a preferred indifferent, can receive the news with genuine disappointment, yet their core peace remains unshaken. Their happiness was never stored in the outcome, but in the integrity of their effort. What one preferred indifferent in your own life are you currently treating as an absolute necessity for your happiness, and what quiet freedom would you gain by loosening that grip? Every impression knocks at the door of your mind, but you are the gatekeeper who decides whether to let it in. This is the power of assent, your rational faculty to approve or reject the initial thoughts that arise from your senses and emotions. It is the final checkpoint before an external event becomes an internal reality, the critical moment where you either invite chaos inside or you bar the gate. The Stoic teacher Epictetus placed immense importance on this single skill. In his discourses, he taught that men are disturbed not by things, but by the views which they take of them. He explained that when any alarming sound strikes your ear, or when you see a troubling sight, the impression is not the problem. The disturbance comes only when you give your assent to that impression, when you confirm its terrifying story as absolute truth. True mental clutter accumulates not from the events of your day, but from your silent, automatic agreements with every negative judgment that floats into your awareness. Consider the familiar surge of anger when a colleague dismisses your idea in a meeting. The initial impression is a raw feeling of heat, a tightening in your chest, and a thought that appears fully formed, shouting that you have been disrespected and unfairly treated. This is the knock at the gate. Without the power of assent, you swing the door wide open. You embrace that judgment as fact, and the chaos follows. Your mood darkens, you plot a sharp rebuttal, and the rest of your meeting is poisoned by this internal storm. But with this Stoic faculty engaged, you pause at the threshold. You hear the knock, you look at the impression, and you consciously choose not to assent. You tell yourself, wait, this is just an impression. I do not yet know their full intent. This feeling is real, but the story I am telling myself about its meaning may be false. By withholding your assent, you drain the situation of its immediate emotional power. You can then respond from a place of choice rather than reactive fury. What is one common negative impression that you tend to automatically assent to? Perhaps the thought that you are not good enough when you make a small mistake. And how can you begin the simple, powerful practice of questioning its story before you let it inside? The sage is a living blueprint for the mind you are building. The Stoics understood that abstract principles of virtue and mental clarity can feel distant and hard to grasp, so they insisted on studying real or imagined exemplars. They did not just theorize about courage, they studied the life of Cotto the Younger, who chose suicide over submitting to a tyrant he saw as illegitimate. They did not just discuss justice, they reflected on the integrity of Socrates, who drank the hemlock rather than betray his philosophical mission. These figures provided a concrete standard, a vivid picture of what mastery looks like when worn by a human being. In his letters to his friend Lucilius, Seneca constantly referenced such paragons. He wrote that we should choose a good man and keep him ever before our eyes, so that we may live as if he were watching us and do everything as if he saw us. This is not about creating an impossible ideal to feel inadequate against, but about finding a reliable compass for your own choices. Your role model acts as that compass, a fixed point you can reference when your own judgment feels clouded by emotion or social pressure. They make the invisible structure of a Stoic mind suddenly visible and attainable. So ask yourself this personal and powerful question: who embodies mental clarity for you? It does not have to be a famous philosopher. It could be a historical leader, a quiet mentor from your own life, or even a fictional character known for their profound equanimity and integrity. Once you have that person in mind, narrow your focus. What one specific quality of theirs can you consciously emulate in the coming week? Is it their patience in listening, their calm demeanor under pressure, or their unwavering commitment to fairness? By selecting a single, actionable trait, you move from admiration to implementation, weaving a thread of their character directly into the fabric of your own daily life. The invisible structure of a Stoic mind remains unbroken because it is designed to bend. It acknowledges a universal truth that everything you see, everything you touch, and everything you are is in a state of constant, inevitable flux. The Stoics did not see this as a cause for despair, but as the fundamental nature of reality to be understood and embraced. To resist this endless flow is to create a friction that grinds away at your peace, a source of immense and unnecessary suffering. The philosopher Heraclitus, who deeply influenced Stoic thought, captured this with his famous axiom that everything flows and nothing abides. You cannot step into the same river twice, for fresh waters are ever flowing in upon you. Marcus Aurelius returned to this theme again and again in his private meditations, reminding himself that the universe is change, and life is but what you make of it through your judgments. He saw the transience of all things not as a loss, but as a necessary condition for renewal and growth. Consider a relationship that has run its course, or a job that once felt like a perfect fit but now feels confining. The default reaction is to cling, to fight against the current of change, to try and force the past to remain the present. You might pour energy into reviving what is naturally fading, creating a storm of anxiety and frustration within yourself. The Stoic approach is to observe the flow, to accept the natural life cycle of all things. This does not mean you give up without effort, but that you recognize when your efforts are no longer about nurturing and have become about controlling. When you accept that this chapter is ending, the struggle ceases. The mental chaos of resistance is replaced by a quiet clarity that allows you to grieve the loss, learn the lesson, and then turn your attention to the new chapter that must, by the law of nature, follow. What change are you currently resisting in your own life, and how could embracing its impermanent nature, seeing it as just one more turn in the river's path, bring a profound sense of ease to your mind? A cluttered mind often stems from cluttered desires. We are taught to want more, to chase the next upgrade, the newer model, the higher status, until our mental landscape becomes a warehouse of unsatisfied cravings. The Stoic path to clarity demands the opposite, a deliberate simplification of what you want. It is mental minimalism, a practice of clearing out the non-essential desires so that your true priorities can breathe and be seen. Seneca saw the immense burden that comes with this accumulation of wants. He wrote that it is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more who is poor. He observed that wealth is the slave of a wise man and the master of a fool, pointing to the way luxury and endless acquisition can imprison your attention and drain your peace. The goal is to distinguish between a natural need and an artificial desire. You need nourishment, you desire a gourmet meal at an expensive restaurant. You need shelter, you desire a home that impresses your neighbors. One sustains your life, the other often complicates it, creating new anxieties about maintenance, appearance, and loss. This is not a call for austerity, but for awareness. A practical step toward this mental decluttering is to conduct a simple desire audit. Take a piece of paper and write down every want that currently occupies your thoughts, from the trivial to the profound. Do you want a new car, a promotion, the approval of a particular person? Then, with the calm eye of a Stoic, evaluate each one. Ask yourself, is this desire rooted in a natural need, or is it an artificial construct of social comparison and marketing? Most importantly, which of these desires, if fulfilled, would genuinely contribute to a life of virtue, of wisdom, courage, justice, and self-control? You will likely find that most of your mental clutter comes from the second category, the desires that promise happiness but only deliver more wanting. So, what is one desire you can consciously let go of today to create more mental space? Mastery is not a fortress to hide within, but a wellspring for purposeful action in the world. Your inner clarity finds its ultimate expression through the discipline of action, which directs your energy toward justice and the common welfare. This principle transforms your daily tasks from a series of chores into a meaningful contribution, providing a powerful antidote to the chaos of selfish or aimless effort. Marcus Aurelius constantly steeled his resolve with this very idea, writing that you should do every act of your life as if it were the last act of your life, and do it for the common good. This is not about grand, world-changing gestures, but about the intrinsic quality you bring to every interaction. Consider a collaborative team project at work. The default, anxious mindset is to focus narrowly on your own contribution, worrying about how it will be perceived, whether you will get individual credit, and protecting your own territory. This self-focused energy creates internal friction and division within the group. Now, apply the discipline of action. Shift your entire focus to the common welfare of the team. Your goal is not to shine as an individual, but to ensure the collective project succeeds. You listen more deeply to your colleagues' ideas. You offer help where you see a gap. You share credit freely. The anxious questions about your personal standing begin to quiet down because your worth is no longer tied to a solitary outcome, but to the health of the whole endeavor. Your actions become cleaner, more direct, and surprisingly more effective because they are aligned with a purpose larger than your own ego. In your very next interaction, whether with a stranger, a family member, or a colleague, how can you ensure your action serves not just you, but the wider good? Chaos is not only felt, it is often spoken into existence. Your words are not just sounds you make, they are the architects of your mental landscape, constantly building either structures of clarity or ruins of turmoil. This brings us to a profound and practical Stoic principle, the mastery of speech. For the Stoics, how you speak was not a matter of social etiquette, but a direct expression of your virtue, a discipline as crucial as the control of your thoughts. Your tongue must be governed by purpose, by truth, and by a genuine benevolence for others. When you engage in gossip, you are not just sharing information, you are polluting your own mind with judgment and pettiness. When you default to complaining, you are not merely venting, you are actively reinforcing a story of victimhood and powerlessness in your own mind, coloring your entire reality with the brush of grievance. And when you lash out with harsh or unconsidered words, the damage ripples in two directions, harming the recipient and leaving a residue of agitation and regret within you. This is the internal chaos that careless speech creates. The Stoic teacher Epictetus laid down a simple but demanding rule for this. He said, "Let silence be your general rule, or say only what is necessary and in few words." He was not advocating for never speaking, but for removing the clutter of unnecessary, reactive, or unkind speech. He taught that before you speak, you should consider if what you are about to say is true, if it is necessary, and if it is kind. This threefold filter transforms your communication from a source of chaos into a tool for clarity and connection. A powerful way to practice this is to commit to a single day without complaining or criticizing. For one full day, make a conscious effort to eliminate all expressions of complaint about things outside your control and all critical judgments of other people. You will quickly discover how often these patterns run on autopilot. The moment you stop the complaint from leaving your lips, you are forced to confront the underlying judgment, to apply the dichotomy of control, and to find a more constructive way to frame the situation internally. This single day of verbal restraint will feel like a deep cleaning of your mental space, so take a moment for an honest recollection. What was the last thing you said that you immediately regretted? And with the clarity of this Stoic filter, what would a more purposeful, truthful, and benevolent version of that statement have been? At the heart of chaos is often a quiet rebellion against how things are. We fight the reality of a missed flight, a sudden illness, or a financial loss, believing the universe has made a mistake that we must correct with our worry. The Stoics offered a radical alternative to this exhausting struggle, the Principle of Providence. This is the profound trust in a rational, benevolent order to the cosmos, a belief that events unfold as they must for the good of the whole, even when our limited perspective cannot see the pattern. Acceptance here is not passive resignation, it is an active alignment with this deeper current. It is the decision to stop swimming against the river and to trust its direction. The Stoic philosopher Cleans expressed this trust beautifully in his hymn to Zeus, writing that no deed is done on earth without your office, nor in the divine heavenly sphere, nor upon the sea, save what bad men do in their own folly. He saw a guiding intelligence in the fabric of existence, one we could either resist or cooperate with. Think of that unexpected job rejection for a position you were certain was perfect. The immediate interpretation is one of failure and misfortune, a door slamming shut. Your mind rebels, replaying the interview and searching for the flaw that cost you the future you had already envisioned. This internal rebellion is the source of your turmoil. Now, apply the lens of providence, reframe the event. See the rejection not as a personal failure, but as a necessary redirection. Perhaps that particular company culture would have slowly eroded your spirit. or a hidden opportunity that is a far better match for your talents is just around the corner, an opportunity that would have remained closed had you gotten this other job. By trusting that the universe is not malicious but rational, you transform the setback from a catastrophe into a hidden guidepost. The chaos of frustration gives way to the quiet clarity of curiosity, of watching patiently for the next right step to reveal itself. This trust is the ultimate surrender of the ego's demand to control every outcome. So, what current difficulty can you practice viewing not as a random punishment, but as a necessary part of a larger, benevolent plan for your ultimate growth? That persistent whisper of what is missing can drown out the music of what is already here. The Stoics understood this deeply, and they prescribed a powerful daily antidote to the poison of lack, the practice of gratitude. Amidst the chaos of desire and dissatisfaction, the Stoic actively cultivates gratitude to reorient the mind towards a profound sense of abundance. This is not a passive feeling that occasionally strikes you, but a deliberate discipline of acknowledging the good. It is a conscious recalibration of your attention, a mental shift from what the world owes you to what the world has already provided. Seneca wrote extensively on this, framing it as a form of justice and a path to true riches. He argued that we should cherish and love what we have been given, for the greatest wealth is a poverty of desires. When you practice gratitude, you are not ignoring life's difficulties. You are simply refusing to let them monopolize your entire field of vision. You are building mental resilience by actively collecting evidence that life is not solely defined by struggle, but is also interwoven with provision and simple beauty. Think of the difference between starting your day scanning for problems versus scanning for gifts. One mindset primes you for anxiety and defensiveness, the other for openness and resilience. A concrete and transformative way to embed this into your life is through a morning ritual of writing down 3 specific things you are grateful for. Do not just list generic ideas like family or health. Be painfully specific. The warmth of the sun on your skin during your walk, the taste of your morning coffee, the fact that a difficult conversation yesterday actually led to a deeper understanding. This specificity trains your mind to notice the countless small blessings that usually pass by invisible. It builds a reservoir of positive evidence that you can draw from when challenges arise. So, beyond the obvious blessings of health and shelter, what is one small, overlooked blessing in your life right now for which you can feel a genuine and quiet gratitude? Perhaps no emotion creates more internal chaos than unchecked anger. It is a fire that burns from the inside, consuming your clarity and leaving only the ashes of regret. The Stoics saw anger not as a powerful force to be harnessed, but as a temporary madness, a brief insanity rooted in a single, faulty judgment. Seneca, in his definitive work on anger, described it as a complete overthrow of the rational mind, a short-lived fury that is both ugly and destructive. He wrote that no plague has cost the human race more dearly, for it is a voluntary misfortune that we choose to inflict upon ourselves. The Stoic solution is not to vent this fire, but to systematically extinguish it at its source by questioning the judgment that lit the match. That judgment is almost always some variation of the belief that you have been wronged, that the world or a person has failed to give you what you believe you deserve. Think of the familiar surge of road rage. Another driver cuts you off abruptly. The initial, raw impression is one of danger and insult. The automatic judgment that follows, the one that fuels the fire, is a story you tell yourself. That person is an idiot. They have no respect for me or anyone else. I do not deserve to be treated this way. This story, this judgment of being wronged, is the kindling. Your heart rate spikes, your hands tighten on the wheel, and a wave of hot anger demands an aggressive response, a honk, a gesture, a dangerous maneuver to retaliate. The Stoic process begins right here, in the space between that judgment and your reaction. You must interrogate the story. Was that driver's action truly a personal attack on you, or was it far more likely the result of their own distraction, panic, or simple error? Does their mistake actually diminish your worth or your safety in any permanent way? By refusing to assent to the initial judgment that you have been unfairly treated by the universe, you deprive the anger of its oxygen. The fire, with no fuel to burn, begins to die down on its own, allowing your rational mind to reassert control and choose a calm, safe response. What is the underlying judgment, that quiet belief that you deserve better treatment from the world, that typically acts as the primary fuel for your own anger when it flares? The goal was never to become an unfeeling statue, but to achieve a state of clear-minded freedom the Greeks called Apatheia. This vital principle is perhaps the most misunderstood in all of Stoicism. Apatheia is not the absence of all emotion, but the liberation from the destructive, irrational passions that hijack your reason and cloud your judgment. It is the difference between feeling a healthy sadness and being consumed by a storm of grief, or between a genuine desire and an enslaving addiction. The Stoic teacher Epictetus pointed directly to this freedom when he taught that what truly upsets people are not the things themselves, but their judgments about these things, and it is in our power to wipe out those judgments. Apatheia is that power in action, the cultivated ability to experience life fully without being mentally overthrown by every passing storm of feeling. Consider the modern craving for social media validation. The phone buzzes, and a powerful, almost magnetic pull draws your hand to check for new likes or comments. That pull is a passion, an irrational craving for external approval. When apatheia is absent, your entire mood can be held hostage by these digital notifications. A post that gets little engagement can cast a shadow over your hour, creating a subtle undercurrent of inadequacy. A negative comment can trigger a defensive anger that lingers long after you close the app. This is the very slavery the Stoics warned against. A mind practicing apatheia still posts, still engages, but it does so from a place of choice, not compulsion. It feels the initial pull of the craving but does not assent to its command. It recognizes the like count for what it is, an external indifferent, and refuses to let it dictate the internal weather of the soul. The passion is noticed, acknowledged, and then allowed to pass by without being granted the keys to your mental citadel. What irrational passion most often hijacks your peace of mind, and what one step can you take to loosen its grip? Stoicism is not a theory to be known, but a practice to be lived. Every principle we have explored, from the dichotomy of control to the discipline of desire, is merely an architectural blueprint until you start the daily work of construction. The invisible structure of mental clarity only becomes solid, only becomes a real fortress you can inhabit, through the mindful and consistent application of all these principles together. They are not a random collection of self-help tips, but an interconnected system, a single philosophy designed to be worn like a second skin. The Roman teacher Musonius Rufus put it with perfect clarity when he said that philosophy is nothing else than to search out by reason what is right and proper, and by deeds to put it into practice. He insisted that virtue is not just a subject for clever discussion, but is made real through our actions, through our deeds, not our words. This is the final and most vital piece of mastery, the integration of practice. You must begin to see your entire life as your training ground. The frustrating commute is no longer just a waste of time. It is your designated dojo for practicing the dichotomy of control. The difficult colleague is not an obstacle, but your personal trainer for the discipline of assent. The unexpected setback is not a catastrophe. It is the examination hall where you demonstrate your understanding of Amor Fati, the love of your fate. Every single moment, especially the challenging ones, presents a choice. Will you react from your old, automatic patterns, or will you pause and apply the principles of the invisible structure? The transformation from chaos to mastery happens in this space of conscious choice, repeated over and over until it becomes your new nature. So now, the most important question remains. Which single principle from this journey can you commit to practicing intentionally with full focus for the next 7 days? Your thoughts are not you, they are simply events passing through the vast space of your awareness. This is the final refinement of the invisible structure, a principle we can call the witness consciousness. The Stoic master cultivates the ability to step back from the constant mental chatter and observe their own thoughts and emotions with the calm detachment of a scientist studying a fascinating phenomenon. This meta-awareness, this capacity to watch yourself think and feel, creates a crucial gap between the initial stimulus and your final reaction. It is in this quiet space, this momentary pause, that your true power of choice and mastery resides. While the Stoics did not use this exact modern terminology, the practice is deeply embedded in their writings. Marcus Aurelius constantly demonstrated it in his meditations, observing his own judgments with a cool, analytical eye, noting his impulses and aversions as if they were data points in a grand experiment of living. He was not his anger, he was the consciousness witnessing the anger arise. This is the pinnacle of the structure you have been building, the conscious observer who can stand within the storm of the mind and remain untouched by the chaos. Imagine you are sitting in a waiting room before an important meeting, and a wave of anxiety washes over you. Your heart beats faster, your palms feel damp, and a chorus of worried thoughts begins to shout about everything that could go wrong. Without the witness, you become that anxiety. You are swept away by the current, your body tensing, your mind spinning catastrophic stories. But with the witness consciousness engaged, you can simply note the experience without being consumed by it. You mentally step back and observe, I am experiencing anxiety. My body is having this physical reaction. My mind is generating these fearful thoughts. You do not try to fight the anxiety or suppress it. You just watch it as if you were sitting on the bank of a river, watching the water flow by. The anxiety may still be present, but it no longer defines your entire reality. You have created a space around it, and in that space you find the freedom to choose your response, to take a deep breath and anchor yourself in the present moment instead of being lost in the frightening future your thoughts are projecting. This observer is the ultimate architect of your inner peace. Can you try, right now, to simply observe your current stream of thoughts without judgment, as if you were watching clouds pass silently across a clear sky? This entire journey has been a single, continuous project, the construction of an invisible structure within your own mind. We began in the crowded room of chaos and have walked through each principle, laying down the beams and raising the walls of a Stoic inner citadel. You now possess the blueprint for a profound transformation, not into a person who never faces storms, but into an architect who has built a shelter sturdy enough to withstand them. Mental clarity was never about the absence of challenge. It was always about the presence of a resilient framework. It is the dichotomy of control that carves your true sphere of power, the discipline of perception that filters reality, the love of fate that turns every obstacle into fuel, and the cultivation of virtue that becomes your only true measure of success. This is the serene power of a well-ordered mind, a truth Marcus Aurelius captured in a single, unifying thought. He wrote, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." Your mind is the artist, and these principles are the palette from which you now choose your colors. This is not an end point you have reached, but a practice you have just begun. It is a lifelong commitment to reinforcing these walls, to sweeping out the mental clutter each evening, and to meeting each new day with the tools of a Stoic practitioner. The final step, as always, is yours to take. In the comments below, I invite you to share which single principle resonated most deeply with you, or one small, concrete step you will take today to begin laying the foundation of your own invisible structure. Your journey is unique, but you do not build alone.